Hello sim captains and crew. We hope you're having a fantastic day as you join us and watch this video. On this channel we frequently say to plan the flight and fly the plan. In fact, it's kind of become our unofficial sign-off. Today, in this video, we're going to show you how to do exactly that. How to plan the flight, and in an upcoming video, how to fly the plan. Today, general aviation style. Stay tuned. If you're a frequent viewer of the channel, you may have already seen our cold and dark tutorial on the Cirrus SF50. This episode today is about GA flight planning. So there are a few things we have to answer before we plan our flight. Where are we going? How will we get there? What will we be flying? And what kind of information will we need to program and operate the aircraft? Today we are at Stanstead, and the flight we will be planning will feature in an upcoming video to Munich in Deutschland. For the sake of this video, what we'll be flying is the Cirrus SF50. There are a few things we want to note. For example, what is the speed and cruise range at maybe a long-range cruise or a high-speed cruise? What the fuel capacity is, its fuel burn, maximum altitudes, what altitudes we will be flying, etc. We'll also need takeoff and landing weights and requirements, so that way we can make sure we don't land at an airfield that's too small or can't support us. So here I've gone to Cirrus's website. As you can see here, it lists the weights over to the right. So we have our maximum ramp weight, the takeoff weights, etc. We have our zero fuel weights. What we're really concerned with is the maximum ramp weight and the takeoff weight. So those are 6,000 and 6,040 pounds. I'll jot down our ramp weight because I do not have that. We'll go a little further down to our performance. So we know our takeoff is, according to what they've said, is 2,036 feet for the takeoff. Takeoff over 50-foot obstacle is 3192. Of course, these figures generally are completed with test pilots, those familiar with the aircraft, in as optimal conditions as they can do. So it'd be unlikely that on an average day, an average pilot would be able to do this. The maximum operating altitude listed here is 31,000. I believe that is a recent certification increase. Previous years, as this is 2019, were I believe certified to 28,000 feet. So we have our stall speed with flaps and our max cruise and our landing ground roll of 1628. So I'm going to jot down to summarize there. I've got 6,000 as our maximum weight, 60/40's ramp. Our takeoff over a 50-foot is 3192 and our landing roll is 1628. So we'll take that information right there and see how it looks compared to X-Plane. One of the important specifications not included on the Cirrus page is the fuel consumption. By referring to Wiki, we can see we have 462 pounds at max cruise and 315 pounds at economy cruise for our fuel consumption estimates. We'll need these to determine how much fuel to load on board to complete our trip. Now that we've reviewed some information about our aircraft, let's move to our next question. How will we get there? I've gone over to SkyVector and we'll use their route building utility in here, and I'll show you guys just how I click and build mine. There are other ways to do it. If you're flying commercial airliners, SimBrief is an excellent utility, but if you're just wanting to have some fun and do it GA style, I'm sure there's others out there, but SkyVector is the one I choose. So I'll show you how I build a route from Stanstead to Munich. I'm going to go to flight plan. Departure will be Stanstead, so that's EGSS. Destination will be EDDM, Munich. So now with that built, it's missing a little bit of information. I'll go ahead and put down our high-speed cruise, which in this instance is 300 knots. So we'll put that down. And an altitude of, let's go with 270. Flight level 270, so that works. All right, so it gives us a distance of 493 with estimated time en route of 1 hour and 41 minutes. This is not completely accurate either, as you can see, it's drawn us a direct line. So we'll have to go through here and add ways to connect this on our jetways or airways, and it'll update our mileage and our flight time accordingly. So here I'll go up to the top right. As you can see, we have the world of VFR. I'm going to click that, and actually I want to go to IFR high. There we go. And I'll zoom in. And we haven't put in our SID, so we're not quite sure how that's, I'm not sure how that's going to direct me out of here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag the line here. Let's go to, let's just try Baypag here, I guess. This is Brooklands Park. And we'll go to that nav aid there, just to kind of get us on here. And we'll head to Dover. We'll go across that UL10. Go ahead and click that as well. Now, I'm not sure how European airspace works. I don't know if you can kind of shortcut and direct. Actually, I'm pretty sure you probably could. We can probably click here and go, was it Famine? Dine-in. This looks like some kind of restricted airspace, so we're not going to go through that. Let's go. Let's go to Rousey. How far do we got to go here? Over there. So we will go to our next waypoint. And all I'm doing is I'm pointing and clicking. I'm just trying to keep it kind of on the lines here. And we have this airspace here. So I don't want to be part of that. I'm going to put Pabla in. It gets kind of messy over here. I don't do a whole lot of GA flying in Europe. So if any of you viewers see this and you have any recommendations, please let us know, and we'll work around that. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll drag this down to Strasbourg, Lupin, and I'm just clicking and dragging here. I'm really not sure how this airspace is going to work, so what I'll do is I'm going to drag this, impacts, I'm going to drag up. We'll go to this Dinkelsbühl. And then that'll get us around this airspace. So here's what our route looks like now. So overlooking it again, where it Stanstead, we'll come down across Dover. We're still on the routes here, and then we've got a couple directs here. We'll jump back on some airways around this restricted airspace here. Cut over by Strasbourg, and then we're going to go up and around this restricted airspace and then back down. So now we have our flight roughly planned. As you can see, now we're at a distance of 576 nautical miles with just under 2 hours for our flight time. If we click Navlog, we can open this document and it'll give us our planned route here. And then we'll also have our waypoints here along with if they're direct waypoints or if we're on airways and the altitude we would expect, wind direction, temperatures, true airspeeds, tracks and wind correction angles. So you get a wealth of information here as well as your time per leg and then time en route or estimated time overall. I could be wrong on what that means there, the ETO. So this is a good sheet if you want to jot and write down to check your flight against the planned flight. Another thing to note, since we are using the Cirrus SF50, which is equipped with a GPS, we were able to do these GPS waypoints here, Famine, Dine and Rousey. And then of course we have the VORs or Vortex. Actually, I guess maybe those are VORs. Possibly that's a Vortex. But if we were in an aircraft that only had VOR navigation, we would not be able to use these. So that would tend to keep us more on direct VOR to VOR routes, and we would not be able to use these. So if you're planning something in an entry level piston single that does not have GPS, when planning your routes, consider and make sure that you have airways or air routes between VORs so that you can track where you're going. Otherwise, you're kind of back with either VFR or dead reckoning navigation. For those of you who have Navigraph, this would be a good time to copy in. I've just labeled this here. This is our SF50 Munich flight. So I am going to try to copy and paste. And let's see if this works. Copy. We'll simply paste it in here. And then I want EGSS and EDDM. Let's see if we can verify that and see what happens. Verification failed. Let's try this. EGSS, EDDM, and verify. Okay, there we've succeeded it. So, or there the verification has succeeded. So if we click save, now we'll have all of our charts. That does not look right. What happened here? And this is why we check our flight plans. What is that? LVM. So let's edit this route. Verify. Save. Okay, there we go. That looks much better. So now we've edited that. See, it was a good thing we checked that, and otherwise we'd be flying to North America, which is not what we want. So now we have our whole route here. And then we have any charts that we would need to look at. If you're doing a lot of flying, I'm sure there's other charts out there, but Navigraph does do a fantastic job. I'm not promoting them. I'm just saying I've had them for about a year and I really enjoy using them. So we do know, let's go to our taxi diagram, our airport briefing here. Okay, that's not what I want. I want this one, I think. Yeah, here we go. So as if we had a question of this, Stanstead's a 10,000 foot runway. So clearly taking off is not a consideration or is not an issue for us. We only needed, according to our sheets, about 3,200 feet to clear a 50-foot obstacle. So this will work. And then if we go check back on Munich, which we picked 2 big international airports, so these are non-issues. But if you're flying into smaller airports, it would be something to you would want to look at. And then we see here we've got a 13,000, and actually they're both exactly the same length here in Munich. So 13,000 foot. So we know our runways at both ends are sufficient, and we will have no issues there. So one last thing we want to do is we want to take a look at our fuel load and load the aircraft, make sure we have enough fuel for the trip. So if you remember, according to the Wikipedia, we had some different fuel numbers there. So we're going to start finalizing the flight now. You can go and look at the weather as well, see what kind of conditions are at your departure and your arrival airport. For fuel, I like to carry an additional 30 minutes to 1 hour if I can of cruise fuel on top of the trip fuel that I've already calculated. Since we have our fuel estimations, let's go over and check the actual airplane based on what we're able to find off the internet. Our weights were 6,000 pounds for the takeoff, 60/40 for the ramp weight. And for those of you unfamiliar with ramp weight, that is a weight over the maximum takeoff should you need to load extra fuel for a lengthy delay or taxi if there's a high traffic area. So you would have to burn that 40 pounds of fuel before you could take off. So we can see here that the aircraft, I have maximum fuel loaded, well, I had it loaded in here. So if I put maximum fuel and then I bring it down, so we're right at 6,000 pounds, which matches what we should according to the website research that we did. So they've done a good job there. We have 1,600 pounds of fuel is what I would like to carry. So the simulator does model that. So if I drop that down to there. So I still have additional weight that I could carry. So I could carry up to 782 pounds. Of course, you would subtract passenger weight from that, and then your remaining would be baggage. And that's how we would calculate our weight and balance for a default aircraft. Several other of the flight factors, the Zebos, etc. They have iPads or other onboard utilities, the SSG, and that's how you would do it there. So you always want to check what numbers you have in real life, however you get those through Wiki or through the manufacturer's website, with what the simulator is going to allow you to do. When I used to play Flight Sim 9 and had Flight Sim Passengers, there was always issues with maximum takeoff weights and fuel weights. So for Flight Sim Passengers, you know, if they said the aircraft weighed too much, then you couldn't either fit enough fuel or enough passengers for your simulated flight. So you could go in and edit the config file on that, and it would take care of that. So to summarize again, we know that we're going to need 1,600 pounds of fuel for our flight, and we're really hoping that that the X-plane simulates that 462. If you get up there and you start flying and you're burning more fuel, then you can cut back and go to that more economy cruise, which for this was 240 knots, and if you will recall, according to the, I believe it was the wiki also, 315 pounds an hour economy. So you can cut back to save a little fuel, but the luxury is that we added that extra 1 hour of cruise fuel that we can kind of dip into a little bit there. So we've got our fuel done. We've planned our flight. We know what our route looks like, and we have our nav log should we choose to print it out or maybe just keep it in a second window and refer back to it as we fly with our nav aid frequencies and our distances and our wind information as of the time of doing this. If we have Navigraph, we also have our our charts here to refer back to. For departure, one quick thing to touch on here, if we open it up, you're going to start looking. This is going to be the last little bit. Actually, I need to get under SIDs. And then you're going to fly the SID to wherever it's going to connect. So if we're flying to Clacton, then we may want to do this route, provided we meet all this criteria. And you want to read through these in detail. But if our flight plan, like if we look at it, I don't believe we had Clacton. So we might be able to take and just drag our first checkpoint maybe over to Clacton. That solves it, and then we could do a Clacton 8 right departure, and then that would, or 8R, and then that would solve it. You have to keep an eye out for your climb restrictions, or your altitude restrictions as you climb. So we have our route, our fuel, our charts, and our nav log. And that would be everything that we need to complete our flight successfully. We thank you for joining us today on FBFT, where today we plan the flight. And in the future, we're going to fly the plan. See you on board again soon.